About Stonehenge. Stonehenge is a Bronze Age and Neolithic structure located near Amesbury in Wiltshire, England, about 13 kilometers 8 miles northwest of Salisbury. Stonehenge includes an earthen embankment surrounding a circle of large standing stones, known as megaliths. There is dispute over the exact age of the stone circle, but most paleontologists assume that most of Stonehenge was built between 2000 BC and 2500 BC. The circular earthen embankment and ditch form the earliest stage of the construction of the Stonehenge monument, around 3100 BC. History of Stonehenge. By the early 20th century, most of the bluestones were tilted. This was most likely due to the increasing number of visitors who climbed Stonehenge around the 19th century out of curiosity. Since then, 3 stages of restoration work have been carried out to straighten tilted or overturned stones and to return them to their original positions. Indirectly, this means that Stonehenge is no longer the original shape advertised in tourism publicity. On the other hand, like other historical monuments, restoration work has been carried out. Stonehenge is the name given to a class of monuments known as henges, consisting of circular embankments with a drain in them. As is often the case in archaeological terminology, this is a term inherited from ancient usage, and Stonehenge should not be classified as a true henge as its embankment is on the side of a ditch. Although as old as the Neolithic henges which it resembles, Stonehenge is vaguely related to other stone circles in the British Isles such as Broger Circle, but its trilithon size, for example, makes it unique. This site was included in the UNESCO World Heritage Site list in 1986. Prehistoric Stonehenge. The Stonehenge complex was built in several stages over a period of 2,000 years, although there was activity at the site long afterward. The burial of a beheaded Saxon was excavated at the monument and dated to the 7th century AD. The stages worked out by archaeologists are as follows. Stonehenge I. The first monument consists of a circular riverbank enclosure and ditch measuring 115 meters 320 feet in diameter and with an entrance on the northeastern side. This phase dates to around 3100 BC. Outside the enclosure are 59 pits, known as Aubrey pits after John Aubrey, the 17th century antiquarian who first identified them. 25 of the Aubrey pits are known to have contained ashes dating back 2 centuries after the construction of Stonehenge. 30 ashes were placed in the enclosure ditch and other parts of the Stonehenge precinct. Pottery from the late Neolithic has been found alongside it, providing evidence of its date. A large unpolished monolithic stone known as the heel stone lies outside the entrance. Stonehenge II. Evidence of the second phase is no longer visible, however, evidence from several post holes from that date suggests that there were several wooden structures built in the circular area around the early 3rd millennium BC. Several board marks have been found placed at the entrance. This phase is similar to the nearby Woodhenge site. Stonehenge 3A. Archaeological excavations have shown that around 2600 BC, 2 crescent arches were created from pits known as pits Q and R dug in the center of the site. The pits contained 80 upright bluestones brought from the Prehistoric Hills, 250 miles away in Wales. The stones were carefully shaped into columns, mostly of mottled dolerite but also including examples of rhyolite, volcanic tuff, and myolite weighing 4 tons. The entrance was widened at this time to align with the midsummer sunrise and midwinter sunset directions of the period. The monument remains unfinished, with the bluestones apparently removed and the Q and R holes filled in. This was probably done during the Stonehenge IIIB phase. The monument appears to have eclipsed the importance of the Avebury site by the end of this period, and the Amesbury Archer, discovered in 2002 3 miles to the south, gives an idea of what Stonehenge might have looked like at this time. Stonehenge 3A is said to have been built by the Beaker people. Stonehenge IIIB. In a later phase of activity in the late 3rd millennium BC, 74 large sarsen stones were found brought from a quarry 20 miles to the north on the Marlborough Downs. These were packed and shaped with pegs and joints before 30 were erected to form a circle of stone pillars 30 meters in diameter topped by 29 stone blocks. Each stone block weighed 25 tons and was clearly shaped to look impressive when completed. The orthostat stones are slightly wider at the top to give the impression of a straight line from bottom to top, while the reed stones are slightly curved to connect the circular shape of the earlier cairn. Within this circle are 5 trillion sarsen stones, worked and arranged in a horseshoe shape. These huge stones, 10 vertical and 5 blocky, each weighing up to 50 tons, are connected by intricate joints. Carved daggers and axe heads have been found on the sarsens. During this period a 500 m long path was built leading northeast from the entrance, and there were 2 parallel sets of embankments with a central ditch. Eventually 2 large portal stones were set at the entrance, of which only one remains, the 4.9 m 16 feet long Killing Stone. This ambitious phase is believed to be the work of the early Bronze Age Wessex culture, around 2000 BC. Stonehenge IIIC. Later in the Bronze Age, the blue stones appear to have been re-erected, forming a circle between 2 sarsen pillars and also in a horseshoe shape in the center, following the sarsen diagram. Although apparently an impressive stage of work, Stonehenge IIIC was less carefully constructed than Stonehenge IIIB. The blue stones that were erected appear to have had unstable foundations and began to collapse. One of the fallen stones was inaccurately named the Cult Stone. 2 rings of pits were also dug outside the stone circle, known as pits Y and Z. These were never filled with stones, and the memorial site appears to have been abandoned around 1500 BC. Stonehenge 4. Around 1100 BC, the causeway was extended over 2 miles to the River Avon, although it is unclear who was involved in this additional construction work. Theories about Stonehenge. The first serious attempt to understand the monument was made around 1740 by William Stukeley. As was his inclination, Stukeley incorrectly attributed the site to the Druids, but his most important contribution was to take measured drawings of the Stonehenge site, which allowed a more accurate analysis of its form and significance. From his work he was able to show that the henge and its stones were arranged in a particular shape which had calendrical or astronomical significance. The method of transporting the blue stones from Wales has been much debated, and based on the fine work produced it has been suggested that they may have been part of an earlier memorial stone in Pembrokeshire and brought to Salisbury Plain. Many archaeologists believe that Stonehenge was an attempt to preserve the stone plank constructions scattered across Salisbury Plain, such as Dennington Walls. The monument is aligned northeast-southwest, and it is often suggested that priority was placed by its builders on the solstices and equinoxes so that, for example, on a midsummer morning, the sun rises exactly on the top of the heel stone, and the first rays of the sun fall directly into the center of Stonehenge between the 2 horseshoe-shaped stone arrangements. It is unlikely that this arrangement was a coincidence. The sun rises in different directions at different geographical levels. For the alignment to be accurate, it would have to be calculated precisely for Stonehenge's latitude of 51 degrees 11 minutes. This coordination would of course have been the basis for the design and location of Stonehenge. Alexander Thom has suggested that the site was laid out according to the dimensions of a megalithic courtyard. Therefore, some have suggested that Stonehenge represents an ancient observation site, although the extent to which Stonehenge was used for this purpose is debated. Some have suggested that it represents a Great Fera article from the observer, a computer, or even an alien landing site. There are many assumptions about the engineering feats required to build Stonehenge. Assuming that the blue stones were brought from Wales by human power and not by glaciers as claimed by Aubrey Burrell, Various methods of moving them using ropes and logs have been proposed. In an experimental archaeological exercise in 2001, an attempt was made to move the large stones along possible land and sea routes from Wales to Stonehenge. Volunteers pulled them on surfboards on land, but when they were transferred to a replica prehistoric boat, the stones sank in rough seas in the Bristol Channel. It is thought that an A-frame of logs would have been installed to support the stones, and the team would have then installed them using ropes. The blocks may have been lifted in stages using wooden platforms and moved to their current location. The joints resemble wood, which suggests that they were skilled in woodworking and they easily acquired the knowledge to erect monuments using this method. The carving of weapons on the sarcens is unique to megalithic art in the British Isles, which favors abstract designs, and the horseshoe-shaped arrangement of the stones is unusual for a culture that usually arranges stones in a rounded shape. However, such motifs were common to the people of Brittany at the time, and it has been suggested that both phases of Stonehenge were built under the influence of the mainland. This may explain, to some extent, the design of the monument, but overall Stonehenge remains outside the context of European prehistoric culture. Estimates of the amount of labor required to build the various stages of Stonehenge give a total of man-hours. Stonehenge I probably required around 11,000 man-hours, Stonehenge II around 360,000, and the various parts of Stonehenge III may have required up to 1.75 million man-hours. The construction of these stones is estimated to have taken 20 million man-hours using the primitive hardware available at the time. Certainly the will to produce such a monument was very strong, and it can be assumed that there was a sophisticated social organization required to build and maintain it. A new history of Stonehenge. Stonehenge remains a place of pilgrimage for neo-Druids and pagans, and was the site of a free music festival held between 1972 and 1984. However, in 1985 the party was banned by the British government. This led to a violent conflict between police and New Age travelers known as the Battle of the Bean Field. In recent years, the position of the henge in Salisbury Square has been affected by the nearby A303 road between Amesbury and Winterbourne-Stoke, and the A344. In the past, several projects, including a dug and submerged tunnel, have been proposed for the site, and English Heritage and the National Trust have long fought to have the road removed from the site. In early 2003 the Department for Transport announced a number of major road extensions, including the A303. On June 5, the Highways Agency published draft outline plans for a 13-kilometer 8 miles diversion of the road at Stonehenge, including a 2-kilometer 1.2 miles tunnel that would place the A303 under its current route. On September 4, 2003, the Highways Agency announced an open consultation, which opened on September 17, which would consider whether these plans were adequate for the site. Many organizations have proposed a longer tunnel, which would protect the archaeological site and the wider surrounding area. Plans for the site include a new heritage center, due to open in 2006. In 2008 the new road scheme will be completed and the old road will be closed. Stonehenge myths and legends. The heel stone was once known as Friar's Heel. Folklore of uncertain origin from before the 17th century tells the origin of the name of this stone. A goblin brought this stone from a woman in Ireland, wrapped it up, and carried it to Salisbury Plain. One of the stones fell into the River Avon, the rest were carried to the plain. The goblin then cried out, "No one will ever know how this stone was brought here." A monk replied, "That's what you think." And the goblin threw a stone at him and hit him in the heel. The stone stuck in the ground and remained there. Some suggestions suggest Friar's Heel is a variation of the name Freya's Heol or Freya's Soul, from the Germanic goddess Freya and allegedly the Welsh words for way and Sunday respectively. Stonehenge is associated with the legend of King Arthur. Geoffrey of Monmouth said that the wizard Merlin had supervised the removal of Stonehenge from Ireland, where it had been built on Mount Killarowse by giants who had brought the stones from Africa. After its re-erecting near Amesbury, Geoffrey related how Uther Pendragon, later Constantine III, was buried within the circle of stones. In his Historia Regum Britanniae, Geoffrey blends British legend and his own imagination in many places. It is interesting that he associates Ambrosius Aurelianus with this prehistoric monument, given the evidence of a common name between Ambrosius and nearby Amesbury. Stonehenge replica. There is a full-size replica of Stonehenge before it collapsed at Maryhill in Washington state, built by Sam Hill as a war memorial. Although it coincides with the midsummer sunrise, it is exactly the position of the sun on the virtual horizon, not the actual position of the sun on the horizon. Another famous Stonehenge replica appears in the film This Is Spinal Tap. A car-henge was built entirely using cars in Alliance, Nebraska by artist Jim Reynolds in 2000 AD. Note: Stonehenge is Britain's most famous prehistoric site and one of the unsolved wonders of the world. Located on Salisbury Plain, the monument consists of a series of large stones that were erected around 5,000 years ago. The exact function and purpose of Stonehenge remains a mystery to this day, making it all the more interesting to visit. Aside from enjoying the beauty and uniqueness of the stones, visitors can also explore the Visitor Center, which provides in-depth information about the history and latest research into Stonehenge. It is also often the site of seasonal celebrations such as the summer solstice, where people gather to watch the sun rise behind the ancient stones.